Fleet Commander Raz Kalun of the mighty Dravax Armada stared through the observation deck's transparent aluminum at the pitiful human settlement below. His mandibles clicked with anticipation as he addressed his officers. So this is the feared human expansion? This pathetic collection of domes and tubes? His voice carried the distinctive rasp of a Dravaxian elite. Ridiculous. We have spent decades avoiding direct conflict with these creatures because our intelligence reports claimed they were dangerous. Lieutenant Vex Morith nervously adjusted her tactical visor. Commander, our reports indicate this is merely an outpost colony. The settlement houses approximately 2,000 humans. It's designated as New Hope in their communications. New Hope? Raz Kalun barked a laugh that sounded like grinding metal. Let's show them how quickly hope dies. Prepare the assault teams. I want boots on the ground in 20 minutes. The bridge of the Dravaxian warship bustled with activity as warriors prepared for what would surely be the easiest conquest in recent memory. Conquest number 374 for the glorious Dravax Empire. Tactical Officer Brax Mueller approached with a data tablet. Sir, preliminary scans complete. The colony appears to have minimal defensive capabilities, but no energy shields, no orbital weapons platforms. Just a small security force armed with primitive projectile weapons. Excellent. Raz Kalun's 6 eyes glittered with malicious delight. Alert all commanders. We will take this colony intact. I want prisoners for interrogation regarding Earth's more substantial defensive emplacements. Vex Morith looked uncomfortable. Commander, with respect, the intelligence briefing strongly recommended against engaging humans directly. Perhaps we should. Are you questioning my judgment, Lieutenant? Raz Kalun's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. No, Commander. Never. I merely suggest caution when dealing with an unknown species. Unknown? We have observed them for 50 standard cycles. They are soft, fragile creatures with no natural armor, no claws, pathetic physical strength, and laughable endurance. Their only advantage is their technology, and this colony clearly possesses very little of that. He gestured dismissively toward the viewport. This will take an hour at most. Then we will have our first human territory, and the High Command will finally recognize my tactical brilliance. Brax Mueller's facial plates shifted into what passed for a Dravaxian smile. The warriors are eager for combat, Commander. Some have wagers on how quickly we will secure the settlement. And what did you wager, Tactical Officer? 30 minutes, sir. Raz Kalun laughed again. I give it 15. Commence the landing sequence. Security Specialist Penny Avery was deep into her second cup of coffee when the proximity alarms blared through New Hope Colony's operations center. She nearly spilled the scalding liquid across her console. What the hell? She swiveled in her chair, facing the main monitoring station where Tommy Okonkwo was frantically tapping commands. We have got multiple unidentified vessels entering atmosphere. Tommy's voice remained remarkably calm despite the blaring alarms. Big ones, and they are not responding to hails. Penny set her coffee down and pulled up the defense protocols on her terminal. New Hope was a scientific and agricultural outpost, the furthest human settlement from Earth and the least prepared for any kind of military engagement. They had exactly 23 security personnel, including herself, plus basic defensive measures designed primarily to deal with the occasional aggressive local fauna. To get Director Takahashi on comms, she ordered, already knowing what was about to happen, and initiate Protocol 0. Tommy's fingers froze above his keyboard. 0? You are sure? Look at those energy signatures. Penny pointed at the readings flooding the screen. Those aren't explorers or traders. Initiate 0. Now. As Tommy hurried to comply, Penny opened a colony-wide channel. Attention all New Hope residents. This is Security Chief Avery. We have multiple unidentified vessels entering our airspace. This is not a drill. All civilians proceed immediately to your designated shelter zones. All security personnel report for duty. Initiating Protocol 0. She hoped the invaders, whoever they were, would give them time to prepare. But as she watched the massive ships descend through the thin atmosphere of Epsilon Eridani IV, she knew they were about to experience humanity's worst nightmare, the first contact gone horribly wrong. From his position in the lead dropship, strike leader Gorks Thul observed the primitive settlement through tactical scanners. His four-man squad was among the elite of Dravaxian shock troops, veterans of a dozen campaigns across 3-star systems. "Remember, warriors," he growled over the tactical net. "Commander Raz Kalon wants prisoners for interrogation. Stun weapons only unless you encounter significant resistance." "Will there be significant resistance, strike leader?" asked Mevlana, the youngest of his squad. Gorks Thul laughed, a harsh bark that echoed in their combat helmets. "From these humans? Not likely. Our intelligence suggests they are physically inferior in every way. Their only advantage is their adaptability and technology. This outpost has minimal tech and no time to adapt." The dropship shuddered as it entered the final descent phase. Through the viewports, Gorks Thul could see the other 11 dropships forming a perfect landing pattern that would surround the central cluster of human structures. "Weapons check," he ordered. "Prepare for deployment in 60 seconds. His squad ran through their pre-combat rituals with practiced efficiency. The dropship touched down with a jarring thud that would have sent less experienced warriors stumbling. Gorks Thul's team remained perfectly balanced as the deployment ramp hissed open. For the Empire. Gorks Thul roared, leading the charge down the ramp. They emerged onto the dusty surface of what the humans called New Hope. The air was thinner than they were used to, but their combat suits automatically adjusted oxygen levels. Gorks Thul signaled to his warriors, and they advanced toward the nearest dome structure, weapons at the ready. The first thing that struck him was the silence. Where were the screams of terror? The chaotic evacuation? The settlement seemed eerily quiet. "Strike leader," Mevlana's voice came through the combat net. "I'm not detecting any movement within the structures." Gorks Thul frowned beneath his helmet. "Impossible. Our scans showed nearly 2,000 life forms minutes ago. Perhaps they are hiding underground?" suggested another warrior. "Spread out. Search for entry points to subsurface levels." Gorks Thul moved toward what appeared to be the central command dome, his heavy footfalls raising small clouds of dust. The door to the dome slid open automatically as he approached, which made him pause suspiciously. Was it a trap? After a moment's consideration, he entered cautiously, weapon raised. Inside, the command center was deserted. Displays still flickered with information. Chairs were pushed back as if their occupants had left in a hurry, and a cup of some steaming liquid sat abandoned on a console. "They knew we were coming," Gorks Thul realized. But how? And where did they go? He approached the central command station, noting the strange symbols on the displays, human writing, presumably. One screen showed what appeared to be a countdown timer. "Strike leader," came the voice of Commander Raz Kalon over the general frequency. "Status report. Commander, the settlement appears to be deserted. We have encountered no resistance, but also no inhabitants. They may have retreated to underground shelters. Find them." Raz Kalon snarled. "They can't have evacuated. Our ships would have detected any launches." "Yes, Commander. We are investigating now." Gorks Thul turned his attention back to the countdown timer. The glowing numerals continued to decrease steadily. He had no idea what they signified, but something about it made his scales itch with unease. "Mevlana, come look at this display. Can you decipher these human symbols?" The younger warrior entered the command center and approached the console. "I studied their common language during mission prep. This appears to be a countdown, but I'm not certain to what. How much time remains?" "Approximately 5 minutes according to our time measurements." Gorks Thul's unease deepened. "Contact the other strike teams. Find out if they have encountered any humans or discovered access to underground areas." As Mevlana complied, Gorks Thul explored the rest of the command center. He found nothing of particular interest until he reached what appeared to be a communication station. A message was displayed prominently on the screen. Mevlana joined him. Strike leader, the other teams report no contact with humans and no access to subsurface levels discovered yet. Can you read this? Gorksthul pointed to the message. The young warrior leaned closer. It says, "Thank you for activating Protocol 0. The countdown initiated. Please evacuate to minimum safe distance of 500 kilometers. Have a nice day." A chill ran down Gorksthul's spine. Despite the temperature regulation of his combat suit, contact the commander immediately. On the bridge of the Dravaxian warship, Raz Kaloum was growing increasingly agitated. "What do you mean, no humans? They have to be somewhere." He bellowed at the communications officer. "All strike teams report the same findings, Commander. The settlement is deserted. No signs of recent evacuation. It's as if they simply vanished." Lieutenant Vex Morith cleared her throat. "The Commander, perhaps we should consider withdrawing the strike teams until we understand what's happening." "Nonsense. They are hiding. Find them." "Incoming urgent communication from strike leader Gorksthul," announced the communications officer. "Put him through." Gorksthul's voice crackled over the speakers. "Commander, we have discovered a countdown timer and a message referencing something called Protocol 0. The message indicates evacuation to a minimum safe distance of 500 kilometers is recommended." "Safe distance from what?" Raz Kaloum demanded. "Unknown, Commander, but I recommend immediate withdrawal, based on a human message." "Absurd. Continue the search." "Commander," Vex Morith interjected, "our sensors are detecting unusual energy readings from throughout the settlement. They appear to be building." Before Raz Kaloum could respond, Tactical Officer Braxmuller called out, "Commander, I'm detecting multiple objects launching from concealed silos around the settlement perimeter. Defensive weapons." Raz Kaloum strode to the tactical display. "No, sir, they appear to be small automated vessels. Dozens of them, launching on various vectors. Shoot them down." "They are not heading toward us, Commander." They are leaving the planet." Vex Morith's voice was tight with concern. "Commander, I strongly recommend immediate withdrawal of our ground forces and departure from this system." Raz Kaloum snarled in frustration. "We are the Dravax. We do not retreat at the first sign of the unexpected." "Commander." The sensor operator's voice was nearly a shriek. "Energy readings throughout the settlement are reaching critical levels." "What kind of energy?" Raz Kaloum demanded. "Unknown, but similar to, Commander, it resembles the energy signature of our fusion cores just before detonation." Raz Kaloum felt the first stirrings of genuine fear. "Recall all ground forces. Immediately." "The countdown has reached 0, reported Braxmuller, his voice unnaturally calm. For a single heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the observation viewport was filled with blinding light as the entire human settlement erupted in a series of perfectly synchronized explosions. From his vantage point in orbit above Epsilon Eridani IV, lead observer Zek Tarek watched in stunned horror as the human settlement transformed into a roiling ball of flame and energy. The tactical display showed all 12 Dravaxian dropships caught in the blast, instantly vaporized along with the warriors they had deployed. The explosions didn't stop there. They spread outward, following seemingly random patterns that Zek Tarek slowly realized weren't random at all. They were following underground conduits, power lines, and infrastructure networks. The entire settlement had been wired to self-destruct. "By the Ancient Ones," he whispered as the command channel erupted with panicked voices. On the main view screen, Commander Raz Kaloum's flagship was frantically maneuvering away from the expanding destruction below. But something else was happening now. The small automated vessels that had launched just before the detonation were accelerating rapidly toward the Dravaxian fleet. Incoming projectiles. Someone shouted over the command channel, but Zek Tarek watched in disbelief as the tiny human vessels slammed into 3 Dravaxian warships almost simultaneously. The vessels themselves didn't appear weaponized, but on impact, they released the same devastating energy that had consumed the settlement. One warship simply disappeared in a flash of light. Another broke apart, its midsection vaporized while its bow and stern tumbled away in opposing directions. The third suffered a glancing blow but immediately lost power, drifting helplessly. All vessels, defensive formations. Raz Kalon ordered over the command channel, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. Target those human projectiles. But the small vessels were too numerous, too fast, and too maneuverable. For every one the Dravaxian weapons destroyed, 3 more found their targets. Zek Tariq's own vessel shuddered violently as something impacted against its shields. Warning alarms blared throughout the bridge. On his tactical display, he watched as the mighty Dravaxian armada, 12 capital ships and their support vessels, was systematically torn apart by what amounted to automated suicide drones. "This can't be happening," whispered his second-in-command. "How could they have prepared such a defense? They had no warning of our arrival." But Zek Tariq was beginning to understand. "They didn't prepare this for us specifically," he said quietly. "This was their plan all along. This is what Protocol Zero means. If they can't defend a colony, they ensure no one else can have it either." The bridge rocked again as another impact stressed their shields to breaking point. "Prepare for emergency jump," Zek Tariq ordered. "We need to warn the Empire." "But Commander Raz Kalon hasn't given the order to retreat," protested his second. "Look." Zek Tariq pointed to the tactical display where Raz Kalon's flagship was now drifting, its engines dark, surrounded by expanding debris that had once been Dravaxian warriors and technology. "I don't think the commander will be giving any more orders." 6 minutes and 43 seconds after the first Dravaxian dropship touched down on the surface of Epsilon Eridani IV, Zek Tariq's vessel made an emergency jump to safety. It was the only Dravaxian ship to escape. Behind them, where a human colony and a Dravaxian invasion force had been, there was nothing but fire and fragments scattering through the void. Across the vastness of space, aboard the heavily shielded observation post designated Hope's Shadow, Penny Avery watched the destruction of her former home on a series of monitors. Beside her stood Director Takahashi, his face impassive but his hands trembling slightly. "Protocol Zero executed successfully," reported Tommy Okonkwo from his station. "Hostiles neutralized. 76% of automated response vessels reached targets." "And our people?" asked Takahashi quietly. 100% evacuation confirmed," Tommy replied with evident relief. "All escape pods successfully launched and are en route to the rendezvous point. All colonists accounted for." Penny let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "So we lost everything except what matters most." Takahashi nodded slowly. "New Hope was just structures and equipment. Those we can rebuild. Our people are safe, and that's what counts." "One hostile vessel escaped," Tommy noted. "Small corvette class. Jumped to FTL before the automatic responders could intercept." "Good," said Takahashi, surprising both Penny and Tommy. "Sir?" Penny questioned. "We need someone to take word back to whoever sent them," Takahashi explained, a grim smile forming on his face. "Someone to explain what happens when you attack humanity's weakest colony." Tommy checked his chronometer. Total engagement time from first landing to final neutralization, 7 minutes and 12 seconds. Penny couldn't help but laugh, though there was little humor in it. 7 minutes. Shortest war in human history, I bet. "Not a war," Takahashi corrected her. "A lesson. And judging by the technology those ships displayed, it's a lesson that will spread quickly through whatever civilization sent them." On the monitors, the fires were already dying in the vacuum of space, the debris of alien vessels and the remains of New Hope colony dispersing into an ever-widening field. Protocol Zero had worked exactly as designed, the self-destruct system built into every human colony since the first contact protocols were established 50 years earlier. "Begin transmissions to Earth Command," Takahashi ordered, "and prepare the backup colony modules. As soon as we confirm it's safe, we start rebuilding." "Same location?" Penny asked. Takahashi nodded. "Same location. But this time we will have something we didn't have before. What's that, sir? His smile widened slightly. A reputation. High Admiral Drav Zoran of the Imperial Dravaxian Navy stared at fleet observer Zek Tarek with all 6 eyes narrowed to slits. The silence in the Grand War Chamber stretched uncomfortably long as the collected Admiralty processed the devastating report. Let me understand this correctly. Drav Zoran finally spoke, his voice dangerously soft. Commander Raz Kalon took our most advanced battle group to subjugate a minor human colony. And in less than 8 minutes, we lost 11 capital ships, 12 troop carriers, and over 7,000 warriors? Zek Tarek stood rigidly at attention, knowing his survival hinged on the precision of his answers. Yes, High Admiral. 7 minutes and 12 seconds from first landing to final detonation. And you are the sole survivor? Of the command staff, yes. My vessel escaped with minimal damage and 9% casualties. Another Admiral, Pexvolak, leaned forward. You claim these humans had no warships? No defense platforms? Just this, self-destruct mechanism and automated drones? Correct, Admiral. They sacrificed their entire colony to eliminate our forces. Murmurs rippled through the gathered Dravaxian leadership. Such a tactic was completely foreign to their warrior culture. Sacrificing territory was anathema to the Dravax, whose empire had been built on taking and holding worlds across 3 galactic arms. These humans are either insane or operating on logic we do not comprehend, declared Admiral Krov Zentel. To destroy your own settlement, rather than allow it to be conquered. What strategic value could such an action possibly have? Drav Zoran tapped his claws rhythmically against the polished stone table. Deterrence, he answered simply. They have demonstrated that invading even their weakest outpost comes at an unacceptable cost. We have lost fleets before, objected Pexvolak. The Dravaxian Empire does not bow to intimidation. We have lost fleets in extended campaigns against established military powers, Drav Zoran corrected. Never have we lost an entire battle group in 7 minutes to an unarmed civilian installation. He turned his attention back to Zek Tarek. Did you recover any data about their defenses or capabilities before your retreat? Limited information. High Admiral. Their evacuation system was remarkably efficient. Sensor logs indicate they had fully evacuated all personnel within 3 minutes of our arrival. The self-destruct system was evidently pre-installed throughout the colony's infrastructure, and the automated vessels appeared to be simple fusion bombs attached to basic guidance systems, primitive but effective, commented Krov Zentel grudgingly. The most concerning element, Zek Tarek continued, is that this appears to be standard protocol for all human colonies. Their communications referenced Protocol 0 as an established contingency. The implications hung heavily in the chamber. If every human settlement was prepared to self-destruct and take attacking forces with it, the cost of conquering human territory would be astronomically high. Drav Zoran rose from his seat, towering over the assembled admirals. We will withdraw all scout vessels from human-controlled space immediately. No engagement without direct authorization from Imperial Command. Observer Zek Tarek, you are promoted to Fleet Commander for your service in bringing this intelligence to us. Thank you, High Admiral. Zek Tarek bowed deeply. Don't thank me yet. Drav Zoran's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Your first assignment is to establish diplomatic contact with these humans. We need to understand them better before deciding our next move. 6 months after the battle that wasn't a battle, the newly renamed colony Phoenix Hope had risen from the ashes of its predecessor. The settlement was almost identical in layout to the original, but with one significant difference, a large metallic obelisk standing in the center of the main plaza. Director Takahashi stood before the assembled colonists, his hand resting on the smooth surface of the monument. Behind him, Penny Avery and Tommy Okonkwo waited with the rest of the security team. Today we dedicate this memorial, Takahashi began, not to mourn loss, for we lost only structures, not lives, but to remember what we accomplished here. In 7 minutes and 12 seconds, the people of New Hope demonstrated humanity's most fundamental quality, adaptability. The crowd nodded solemnly. They had returned to rebuild their lives on the same spot where, half a year earlier, they had triggered nuclear fire to deny aliens a foothold. Some have questioned the wisdom of returning to this location, Takahashi continued. They argue that we should abandon a place that has proven dangerous. But retreating is not the human way. Instead, we learn, we adapt, we prepare. Penny scanned the crowd, noting the mixture of emotions on display. Pride, certainly, but also apprehension. Everyone knew that returning to the scene of humanity's first violent alien encounter carried risks, since our encounter with the Dravaxian Empire. Takahashi said, speaking the name of their attackers for the first time in public. Protocol Zero has been enhanced across all human settlements. Evacuation times have been reduced, defensive capabilities increased. Earth Command has used the data we gathered to strengthen our position throughout colonized space. He placed a small device against the monument, and it activated with a soft hum. A holographic display sprang to life, showing the names of all who had been present during what was now called the 7-Minute War. But our greatest achievement was not the destruction we caused, Takahashi said more quietly. It was the message we sent. Humanity may be physically weaker than many spacefaring species. Our technology may not be the most advanced, but we will not be conquered. We will not submit. And we are very, very prepared. A communications officer approached Penny, whispering urgently in her ear. Her eyes widened slightly, and she moved quickly to Takahashi's side, murmuring something to him. The director's expression remained impassive, but he nodded once, sharply. Citizens of Phoenix Hope, he announced, I have just received word that a Dravaxian diplomatic vessel has entered our system under a flag of truce. Earth Command has granted permission for preliminary discussions to take place here, at the site of our encounter. A ripple of nervous conversation swept through the crowd. This is not cause for alarm, Takahashi assured them. Rather, it is validation of our actions. The Dravaxians have learned that humanity is not to be trifled with. Now they wish to talk rather than conquer. This, too, is a victory. Fleet Commander Zek Tarek felt distinctly uncomfortable as the diplomatic shuttle descended toward the rebuilt human colony. Through the viewport, he could see that it was nearly identical to the settlement his people had attempted to conquer, right down to the dome configurations and connecting tubes. Beside him, Ambassador Trelvox pored over reports and cultural briefings. Fascinating species, the ambassador muttered. Their physical weaknesses have driven them to develop extraordinary contingency planning. Is that your diplomatic assessment? Zek Tariq asked, unable to keep a hint of sarcasm from his voice. They are fascinating? Trelvox's face plates shifted in the Dravaxian equivalent of a shrug. What would you prefer I say? That they terrify the Imperial Admiralty because they are willing to blow themselves up rather than be conquered. That no military planner in the Empire can comprehend their strategy of sacrificing territory to preserve population? That would be more honest. Honesty is overrated in diplomacy, Commander. The ambassador returned to his readings. Besides, there's something admirable about them. Do you know what they have named their rebuilt colony? Phoenix Hope, according to our intelligence. Yes, in human mythology, the phoenix is a bird that burns itself to ash, then rises renewed from those ashes. An unusually apt metaphor, wouldn't you say? Zek Tariq hadn't considered it that way. He had been too focused on the military implications of humans who treated nuclear self-destruction as a standard evacuation procedure. The shuttle touched down gently on a landing pad near the colony's center. Through the viewports, Zek Tariq could see a delegation of humans waiting, including one he recognized from colony transmissions intercepted before the attack. Remember, said Trelvox as they prepared to disembark, the Empire has authorized me to offer significant concessions to secure a non-aggression pact. The Imperial Command is quite adamant that we avoid direct conflict with humans for the foreseeable future. The mighty Dravaxian Empire, cowed by a single engagement that lasted less than 8 minutes, Zek Tariq marveled, not without bitterness. Not cowed, Commander. Educated. There's a difference. As the shuttle's ramp extended and the Dravaxian delegation emerged into the thin atmosphere of Epsilon Eridani IV, Zek-Tariq couldn't help but feel he was walking into the most important diplomatic mission of his life. Penny Avery stood slightly behind Director Takahashi as the alien visitors approached. Her hand rested casually near her sidearm, a gesture that she was certain the Dravaxian security detail noticed. Good. Let them know that humans remained vigilant. The lead alien was clearly some sort of diplomat, dressed in elaborate robes adorned with what appeared to be military honors. Behind him walked another Dravaxian that Penny recognized from intelligence briefings, the commander of the lone escape vessel from the battle. "Welcome to Phoenix Hope," Takahashi greeted them, using the standard diplomatic phrases that had been hastily assembled by Earth's xenolinguists. "I am Director Akira Takahashi, administrator of this colony." The robed alien responded in surprisingly good English. "I am Ambassador Trelvox of the Dravaxian Diplomatic Corps. On behalf of the Imperial Command, I thank you for agreeing to these discussions." Takahashi nodded graciously. "We prefer peaceful interactions when possible. Please follow me to our conference facility." As the two delegations walked through the colony, Penny noted how the Dravaxian security personnel kept looking around nervously, probably wondering where the self-destruct mechanisms were hidden. She suppressed a smile. Let them wonder. The conference facility was simple but elegant, with a large circular table that placed all participants on equal footing. Once seated, Ambassador Trelvox wasted no time getting to the point. "Director Takahashi, the Dravaxian Empire wishes to formally acknowledge the misunderstanding that occurred 6 months ago. Commander Raz Kalon acted without proper authorization when he attempted to establish control over your settlement." Attempted being the operative word, Penny thought with grim satisfaction. Takahashi's expression remained neutral. "We appreciate your clarification, Ambassador. However, I'm curious, what would constitute proper authorization for such an action?" The question clearly made Trelvox uncomfortable. "The Imperial Command has reviewed its expansion policies in light of recent events. We seek to establish a formal boundary between Dravaxian and human space, with mutually agreed upon protocols for contact and communication." "In other words," Takahashi said bluntly, "you no longer wish to conquer our colonies." "Our priorities have shifted," the ambassador replied diplomatically. The Dravaxian military commander, Zek-Tariq, if the intelligence briefings were correct, leaned forward. "What the ambassador is attempting to express is that the Empire recognizes the extraordinary measures humans are willing to take to protect their sovereignty. We respect your determination, even if we find your methods unconventional." "Is that why you returned?" Penny asked, speaking for the first time. "Because you respect us?" Zek-Tariq's 6 eyes focused on her. "We returned because you taught us the most important lesson any military can learn: know your enemy before you engage them." "We need not be enemies," interjected Takahashi smoothly. "Earth has no territorial ambitions in Dravaxian space. We seek only to protect our colonies and continue peaceful expansion into unclaimed systems." Ambassador Trelvox nodded. "These objectives are compatible with Imperial interests. We propose a treaty establishing a neutral zone between our territories and protocols for handling disputed systems." The negotiations continued for hours, delving into the specifics of spatial boundaries, communication protocols, and trade possibilities. Throughout the discussions, Penny noticed that the Dravaxian delegation treated the humans with a curious mixture of caution and respect, as if they were dealing with particularly intelligent bombs that might detonate at any moment. After the formal talks concluded, Director Takahashi invited the Dravaxian representatives to tour the colony. Ambassador Trelvox accepted enthusiastically, while Commander Zek-Tariq agreed with visible reluctance. As they walked through hydroponics facilities and research laboratories, Penny found herself walking alongside Zek-Tariq, slightly separate from the main group. "You were there," she said quietly. "During the attack?" Zektarek's scales shifted slightly, discomfort, perhaps. I observed from orbit. I did not participate in the ground assault. But you saw what happened. I saw your colony transform itself into a weapon, he replied. I saw my comrades die in fire and vacuum. I saw tactics that no Dravaxian commander had prepared for. Penny nodded. Protocol Zero was designed as a last resort. We never wanted to use it. Yet you were remarkably prepared to do so. That's humanity in a nutshell, Commander. We pray for peace, but prepare for war. They walked in silence for a moment before Zektarek spoke again. The Empire has studied your species extensively since our encounter. Your history is violent. You have fought each other constantly throughout your development. We have, Penny acknowledged. Our analysts believe this internal conflict has forced you to develop both aggressive and defensive technologies at an accelerated rate. You have had to imagine every possible way you might be attacked, because somewhere in your history you probably were attacked that way by other humans. Penny couldn't help but laugh. Your analysts aren't wrong. Humans have always been our own worst enemies, until we found the stars. Now we have mostly united. Mostly. This makes you dangerous, Zektarek observed. Not because you are physically imposing or technologically superior, but because you think like predators even when you are the prey. They reached the central plaza where the memorial obelisk stood gleaming in the afternoon sunlight. Zektarek paused to examine it. The names of those who fought in the 7-Minute War, Penny explained. All 2012 colonists who were present that day. Zektarek's head tilted in confusion. But there was no battle. You evacuated. The evacuation was the battle, Commander. Every human who escaped was a victory. Every piece of the colony wired to self-destruct was a weapon deployed. Understanding dawned in the alien's 6 eyes. Your strategy was never to win by fighting. It was to make the cost of victory too high for the attacker. Now you are getting it, Penny smiled grimly. Humanity's first rule of warfare, if we can't win, we make sure you lose too. 2 days later, the diplomatic shuttle lifted off from Phoenix Hope, carrying the Dravaxian delegation back to their waiting vessel. On the observation deck of the colony's command center, Director Takahashi and Penny watched it ascend. Do you think they will honor the treaty? Penny asked. I think they'd be fools not to, Takahashi replied. Their intelligence on us was obviously incomplete before. Now they understand what they are dealing with. And what's that, exactly? Takahashi smiled slightly. A species that lost its natural weapons millions of years ago and compensated by becoming really, really good at making artificial ones. A species that turned its greatest weakness, physical vulnerability, into psychological strength. Tommy Okonkwo approached, holding a data tablet. Earth Command has approved the final treaty text, Director. The neutral zone will be established along the coordinates we negotiated. Excellent, Takahashi nodded. And the expansion plans? Proceeding as scheduled. 3 new colonies will be established along our side of the neutral zone within the next standard year. But Penny raised an eyebrow. Seems provocative. Not at all, Takahashi replied. It's reassurance. We are demonstrating that we trust the treaty will hold. And if it doesn't. Protocol Zero, Penny finished the thought. With improvements, Tommy added. Earth Command was quite impressed with our 7-minute response time. The new colonies are being designed to execute the protocol in 5 minutes or less. Takahashi turned away from the viewport as the Dravaxian shuttle disappeared into the upper atmosphere. Humanity has always been adaptable, Penny. It's our greatest strength. When we were slower than our prey, we invented spears. When we were weaker than our predators, we harnessed fire. When we were vulnerable to the elements, we built shelters. And when we couldn't defend our most distant colony, Penny continued, we made sure no one would want to attack it again. Precisely. Takahashi gestured toward the busy colony around them, scientists researching, engineers building, children playing in carefully controlled environments. This is our true victory, not the ships we destroyed or the aliens we frightened, but the fact that life continues here, uninterrupted. On a monitor nearby, the Dravaxian diplomatic vessel engaged its faster-than-light drive and vanished from the system. The first interspecies treaty in human history had been signed, not from a position of military dominance, but because humanity's weakest point had proven too costly to attack. In the darkness between stars, another vessel observed the proceedings with keen interest. Unlike the brutish Dravaxian ships or the practical human constructions, this craft resembled an elegant sea creature, its surfaces flowing and organic. On its command deck, Captain Lis Vaden of the Aetheric Confederation reviewed the sensor data with growing concern. "So it's true," she murmured to her executive officer. The Dravaks attempted to conquer a human outpost and were decisively defeated. In 7 minutes, according to intercepted communications, confirmed the executive officer. The humans destroyed their own colony to eliminate the invasion force. Lis Vaden's tendrils rippled thoughtfully. The Dravaks have been the dominant military power in this sector for 3 centuries. If these humans can defeat them so thoroughly, should we adjust our expansion plans, Captain? The Etheric Council had marked several systems near human space for colonization. Captain Lis Vaden stared at the holographic representation of the sector, particularly at the newly established neutral zone between Dravaxian and human territory. "No," she decided finally, "but we will send additional observers. I want to know everything about these humans before we make contact. Their strengths, their weaknesses, their culture, their technology, everything. And if they detect our observation vessels, then we engage diplomatically immediately. We will not repeat the Dravaxian error of assuming military superiority without proper intelligence." The executive officer nodded. "The Council will be most interested in your report." Indeed. A new power has emerged in our corner of the galaxy, one that compensates for physical limitations with tactical brilliance and psychological warfare. Lis Vaden's mouth parts formed the etheric equivalent of a smile. "For the first time in generations, the game has changed." She gave the order, and the sleek vessel slipped silently back into the void, carrying word of humanity's 7-minute victory to yet another alien civilization. The ripples of what had happened at a small, seemingly unimportant human colony were only beginning to spread across the stars. On Phoenix Hope, blissfully unaware of their new observers, humanity continued its work building, researching, and adapting. Always adapting. For in the vast darkness between stars, they had learned an important truth. Sometimes the best defense isn't strength or advanced technology, but simply the reputation of being too costly to attack. The weakest colony had become the strongest symbol. And in 7 minutes and 12 seconds, humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in a language that every species understood, the language of survival at any cost.